Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. It's brought to you by SodaStick.com. I'm Brandon Mileski, Pat Micheletti with me as always. Hi, Pat.
Good morning, Brandon.
We'll talk a lot of Minnesota Wild and NHL with you shortly, but first we want to chat with the head coach of the St. Cloud State men's hockey team, Brett Larson. Brett, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know you're preparing for North Dakota this weekend. Unfortunately, I do want to rewind back to your series before Thanksgiving in which you lost the 2 to Western Michigan. Off to a great start this year, 9-2 to begin with. You've beaten some high-quality opponents. Obviously, you're ranked very highly. How have the kids reacted this weekend or this week during practice to kind of your first, after being humbled a little bit at Western Michigan?
Yeah, it's. I don't want to say it's been a rough week, but it's been the first week where you got that feeling that you're gritting your teeth a little bit when you come to the rink. You're not happy. You're certainly. You feel like you've got something to prove. You want to turn it around quickly, and you can't. You've got that weekend where you just got to sit and stew on it, where you've got that off weekend. I know it's for a player or a coach, the last thing you want to do is go into a break weekend feeling like that. It gives you 2 weeks to stew, 2 weeks to be ticked off about it. But I think at the end of the day, the guys worked extremely hard. We competed very hard. We pushed them. We used the week to get better, and I know they're chomping at the bit to play.
Hey, Brett, you and I had talked before the season about how potentially this year could be just a great year of college hockey due to the transfer portal, due to, the eligibility rule where guys get that extra year. And we're seeing that now, every week, aren't we?
We are, and what you're seeing is so much parity. I think college hockey is better than it's ever been, and you look around any of the top 10 teams, any of the leagues really. I mean, it's almost Splitsville every weekend. You look at North Dakota, Minnesota splitting, Duluth and North Dakota splitting. Duluth's got Fairbanks to come in and they win one and go to a 0-0 overtime tie the next night. For us, UNO was heck. They had some guys sick and out, and we had a big night against them the first night. Second night goes to overtime. It's just every team is better. Every team's a little bit older. And it's just so competitive this year. In all honesty, I think you're going to see a lot of teams really in a very tight bunch come the end of the year, and there's not going to be a lot of separation.
Brett, now that we're 14 games in, is there anything now that has surprised you about your team that you didn't expect before the season began?
Well, I don't want to say surprising. I've been happy with their resiliency. They've come back after a tough loss here and there. Obviously, losing to Minnesota at home in overtime, or a tough loss on a Friday night, 1-0 to Mankato. We've whether it be the next weekend or the next night, we've always found a way to bounce back, and you have to have that at this level and with as tight as things are. So that's what we're looking for here now. I'm looking for the team to bounce back and play our best hockey here. It's our last 2 games before Christmas. And we certainly want to go into this next break feeling a lot better than we did the last one.
Well, I mean, I just took a peek at the standings this morning, and you got North Dakota right at the top now, right? And
Yep.
You guys are 6 points behind. I mean, this is a pretty big weekend for you guys to jump back up, potentially in that top 4, maybe even get as high as tied for first.
Yeah, you want to stay in that pack towards the top, and that's why it's a huge weekend for us. The points are critical, obviously. Obviously, we know where North Dakota is. I think I don't want to call them a surprise at all by any means. I think they're playing really good hockey, and they had a lot of turnover from last year, and you can tell those new players have just bought right into their system and how they play. So they're going to be as good as they've ever been. It's going to be a huge challenge for us for sure, but these are the ones you get up for. These are the ones that in the Herb, this place is rocking, and it's going to be packed. It's going to be just like the Minnesota series at home, and we all know these are the games as a player that you work your whole life to playing games like this.
Well, both games are going to be on Fox 9 Plus again this weekend. So for the fans who want to see a great series with North Dakota and St. Cloud, for the people who will be watching this weekend, Tell us about some of the guys that, they should be watching for on your teams. Some of the guys that have stood out, that are really, main cogs to your team.
Well, the first two I think of right away are guys that have been here a long time, and that's Kevin Fitzgerald and Micah Miller. Kevin
Yeah.
has been getting the points, so he's been getting some of the recognition. He's just been really good on the power play, good on 5-on-5. He's been our go-to guy. He's a fifth-year kid that's he's been a staple around here for a long time, and he's having his best year of college hockey ever. And it's really fun to see. As you know, Patty's an unbelievable kid.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to see him doing so well. He's got a lot of energy, and he's the jokester in the locker room. He's that kind of guy. And then Mike Miller's kind of the exact opposite. He's a man of few words, and just shows up and comes to work every day. And he's maybe not getting as much as the attention as Kevin's getting right now, but he has earned. I mean, without Micah this year, we're not where we're at. He's been a huge part of it, from the penalty kill to the 5-on-5 play to being physical to driving the net, doing the hard things. Those two, I think, have really been the catalyst for our team.
How about Vidi Mietnia? I was just looking at the stats and saw that he's leading the team with 49 shots on goal, yet only has 3 goals. It kind of, Pat obviously knows we watch a lot of Kevin Fiola with the Minnesota Wild, where he's getting chances at night after night after night, but it's just not going in for him. Are there kind of similar parallels with Mietnin that you just over the course of time, these are just going to go in for him? And how do you manage as a coach someone who's maybe not shooting at the percentage they would like to shoot?
Yeah, well, number one, he's a good kid, and he's you got to make him understand, and he does understand, that the biggest thing you worry about is when a player like that's not getting the chances. I guess that's really old, but he continues to get the chances. He continues to shoot the puck. He is really good when he underhandles it and uses his shot to beat a goalie, on kind of those surprise shots. He's not as good when he tries to overhandle it and keep it longer, per se. He's really good in tight areas when he gets that shot off quick. And sometimes I thought at times he was maybe pressing to try to do too much rather than just understand using his feet, getting that shot off has been his biggest strength. So the other thing I think is typical for a freshman that came in and did really well. He's not surprising anybody this year. He's on their game plan. Certainly North Dakota is aware of him. They're going to be ready to try to defend him, try to have some of their best defensemen out against him. So that's another thing that pushes kids to get better. He's got to learn now to play against some of the other team's top players. Where last year we had him on the third line most of the time, and we could get the matchups we wanted. This year, other teams are certainly preparing to play Vidi.
Okay, Brett. Last year, you guys make it to the final game. Lose a tough one in the NCAA championship game. Going into this year, it could go one of two ways, right? It could be like, we're going to get back there. We got a taste of it. We love it. We're going to get back there. And then on the other side of it, there could be, you know what? We'll get back. We'll get back. Well, that type of attitude, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep, for sure.
Has that been difficult, or how, as a coach, how do you handle that? In keeping everybody, focused and ready to get back there, and not, just think you're going to get back there.
Well, that's been the message from day one. And the good thing for us is we've got great captains, starting with Spencer Meyer. Spencer really controls the room and controls the message in there. And he's been great with that. He's got a good leadership core around him. Message from day one is it's not going to just happen because we show up. We've pushed the guys hard. We've held them accountable. They're pushing each other hard. There's a sense that they want this. And I think there's also a sense of seeing that it's going to be hard to get back there, especially this year with as good as everybody is. So we have to keep digging down. And I know there's a hunger in the room, and I've seen that hunger in the room. And, we went through some struggles last year, last couple of years. Western Michigan's kind of been our nemesis, but we've been able to find a way to use that to help us get better. And I know that's how the guys feel again this week is, what we got to find a way to get it done in Western, but we need to use that to push us to keep getting better, never get comfortable. I'm a big believer in you have to go through adversities throughout the season.
Oh yeah.
That's how you handle those adversities. And do you help them, does it help the team get better, or does it kind of, tear the team apart where guys start getting selfish and whiny and that type of thing? You got to keep a pulse on that in your culture and just make sure that you use those points of adversity throughout the year to keep getting better, because they're going to come now and they're going to come again in the second half. I guarantee it. The league's too good. You're going to go on runs where you don't win 2 or 3 here or there, and it's going to be tough. But at the end of the day, if you can use it to keep getting better, all you want to be doing is playing your best hockey at the end of the year.
Brett, I need an update on St. Cloud State's biggest rival, because I always felt like it used to be the University of Minnesota. I wonder if that rivalry is maybe dissipated a little bit with Minnesota moving out and not seeing them as much in the conference. Is it Minnesota still? Is it Minnesota Duluth? Is it your opponent this week in North Dakota? I mean, what's
Well,
kind of
those are
your
the big. You just named the big three, right?
the big
For
three?
sure.
Okay.
Those are the big rivals for sure. But Pat was in the rink, and I would have a hard time telling people that Minnesota is not a huge rival around here. That was my first time getting to coach against the Gophers in this rink since I've been here, and I got to be honest. As fun as a lot of the other rivals are, I don't think I've ever seen the rink like that. It was something special, and I it's a big part of what kind of helped build this program. That rivalry, I think, was so big for St. Cloud State, and that rivalry is a lot of people thought maybe it had dissipated a little bit, but the energy in the rink that night was unbelievable.
Quick update on North Dakota. Their strengths, weaknesses. To me, they're you look at their decor and it's pretty impressive. What do you have to do this weekend?
Well, it's funny. So you look at them and you think, gosh, they lose Kawaguchi and some of these guys, Pinto and some big time players. They have 5 transfers. How is it going to work? Well, it's pretty clear that they've just sucked those guys right into their culture and their program and the way they play, because here they are at the top of the league again, and they haven't changed a thing. They're going to forecheck the crap out of you. They're going to try to turn pucks over. They're going to get pucks and bodies to the net. They're going to be a linear line rush that will try to get pucks in behind you and again get them to the net. If they don't they'll get them low to high and then throw them back to the net and crash the net. So you got to win the net fronts in this series for sure. If you can control them around your net, not give them second or third opportunities, heavies on sticks, try to make them beat you on a first attempt rather than a second or third. I think you can take away some of their offense that way. Their power play is good. You certainly don't want to put them on the power play right now as well. That's their kind of MO. On the other end, they make it tough for you to get to their net. They really do. That defense core is as good as any. They're very solid. For us, I think any opportunity to gain space between the dots and take it there is going to be critical. And we need to make Driscoll feel uncomfortable in this rink. He's a kid that if he sees it, he's going to stop it. That's as old as hockey. But we have to be willing to get there against their defensemen and make it uncomfortable on them.
Brett, when you have a team like yours that's as deep as it is and you get scoring from everywhere, and I think sometimes maybe we kind of forget about the goaltending a little bit. You guys are giving up less than 2 goals a game. I'm guessing you're just pretty happy with your goaltending so far through 14.
Yeah, I think David, it's been, in all honesty, I think it's been one of his best starts here. He's been focused. He's got something to prove. David typically took some time to get into the season a little bit and maybe not play his best till mid-year. I think he's looked like a kid that's on a mission to prove people that this is his year and that he can be a consistent goalie from start to finish. And he's been solid for us for sure. We expect the same thing out of him this weekend. And I think our decor too has played well in front of him. I think that's been a really solid group for us for sure. So if we can continue to play well on our end, and we're going to have to, it's, Pat, you asked me earlier, I guess the one thing that I forgot about that I shouldn't, because it's definitely a main key, is our ability to break the puck out against a heavy forecheck against North Dakota. We know they're coming hard. Our ability to make the little plays, trying to get pucks to where we want to get it to, and relieve that pressure and break out. If we can exit our zone, as I watched Minnesota do one night, I watched Duluth do one night up there. If we can exit the zone like that, that's going to give us an opportunity to tilt the game in our favor.
Okay, Brett, we talk a lot about the Minnesota Wild on this podcast. Can you give the Minnesota Wild fans a little scouting report on Sam Henches and Jack Peart?
Yeah, Jack Peart has stepped into college hockey and almost made it look easy. He already, it's really funny. He's an 18-year-old kid, and I don't know if this makes sense to some people, but most kids don't do this. He comes into practice a half hour early and sits and has a coffee with our equipment manager, and they sit back there and he has his coffee. He's acting like an old pro already, and he's
Iron Ranger.
He reminds me of Suter a lot in a lot of ways. His ability to make things almost look easy at times because he's always making the right play. He doesn't put himself in trouble very often. The puck's on his stick and off his stick to the right spot. He's got the ability to join the rush as a second wave. He's got the ability to take that heavy forecheck into him at times and find those little bump plays and slip plays under sticks. I just think what the Wild are going to see here at St. Cloud and what they're going to see in the future is a really well-rounded defenseman that can play in all situations. And that's a guy you love to have. He's going to be able to play the power play, can kill penalties, can play against other teams' top lines. I think he's a special player.
Yeah, you know how funny it is. I don't know how many times I've said to you after a game or, previewing what's coming up, how many times, well, I didn't notice him again tonight. Just because he doesn't make mistakes, so subtle, makes the right plays, always in position. It just kind of like a Brodeen and Spurgeon, where they just every night just do their job and are great players.
Yeah, I'm really excited about him, and I know the Wild will be too. He's a throwback in a lot of ways, and I think he's a winner. He's a team that anybody's going to want in their organization, and we're lucky to have him here. So, and Sammy, he's been hurt for quite a while now. I know it's going to be a shot in the arm for us when we get him back. It's looking like we'll have him back for Bemidji starting the new year. Unfortunately for Sam, it's just been that injury bug with him. He's a highly skilled player that competes and can skate and really brings a lot of energy to your lineup when he's in there. We're definitely missing that, but he's got to find a way to get over that injury bug, and hopefully he'll be healthy for the second half and be able to help us.
Brett, appreciate your time as always. Good luck this weekend against North Dakota, and we'll talk to you down the line.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Brett Larson, head coach of the St. Cloud State men's hockey team. Before we talk to Pat Micheletti, let's talk about our sponsor on Beyond the Pod. That would be sodastick.com. Go to sodastick.com to get your original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. If you haven't seen this stuff yet, you got to check it out. All of their apparel is screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You will love it, and we're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. So use the code KFN for 15% off. It's perfect for stocking stuffers or for Christmas gifts. That is sodastick.com. Original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFN for 15% off your next order. I'm assuming you're going to be on the call then for North Dakota, St. Cloud State. What are you expecting this weekend?
Oh, I think it's going to be a great series. And, I brought up the standings. North Dakota, 15 points. St. Cloud, 9. They've lost 3 in a row. And I think it's the first time in Brett's coaching career at St. Cloud where they've lost 3 in a row. So it's a big weekend. And, it's really, really hard to sweep teams, as Brett alluded to, especially this year in any league with any team that you're playing against, conference or non-conference. So, I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a really fast, really good series. So looking forward to it.
I want to talk about Minnesota Duluth and how I still almost feel like that's an underrated story going on with how great they've been with the national championships and the Frozen Four appearances. And even despite that, Pat, it seems like the following year after they win a national championship, it's not like people are expecting them to fall off, but they're not up there ranked number 1. They're not ranked number 2, even within this state.
Right.
And same thing kind of happened going into this season where, they're going to be a good team, but, St. Cloud State's probably going to be up there and Minnesota State's going to be up there. And, the Gophers are expected to be better. And here we are at the beginning of December, they're ranked number 1 in the country, Pat.
Year in and year out, and I don't know if they get enough respect nationally or even locally here in the state. I think you bring up a good point. I talked to Scott Sandlin, and I said, and I said, how do you replace 111 goals? And he said to me, well, you know what, that 111 goals, I thought they were going to get more than 111. And so, it's really uncanny. I don't even know the word to describe how his ability to bring guys in, plug them into his system, and how quickly they adhere to that structure, that the type of play that he wants. And it's amazing. No matter who the name is, they're able to fit right in, and they play sound. They've only given up 7 goals in conference play, and that's crazy at this point of the season. But they defend really well. That's how they win. If they get to 3 goals, more often than not, they're going to win. So their goal is to give up 2 or less, and that's how they win their championships.
for the Minnesota-Michigan series this weekend. Might be first team to get to 5 goals wins those games. We've talked all offseason, about the guys coming back from Michigan that were drafted very highly in the NHL draft. Obviously, an important weekend for the Gophers that have slipped a little bit, and a team that they're probably fighting for the Big Ten title with this year.
Yeah, Michigan first. They're on paper they are the most talented team in the country. Not and it's close, but not very close. Okay, and what you're seeing in Michigan is you've got 7 first rounders, and they're young. They're young players. They're great players. They're all going to make it to the National Hockey League, but they were drafted on potential and getting to that. And they will, because they have that skill level. But when you're that young, you still have to learn how to win. And you have to learn how to win as a team, and all of that comes into play. So they're going to have their ups and their downs. And the hope for Mel Pearson is that by the end of the year, they're mature enough to handle the tough situations and win the tough games. This weekend series, it's going to be terrific. I think Minnesota is going to be jacked up and ready to play. They played really well last year in Michigan. Minnesota, again, ultra talented team, but they haven't found their niche yet. They haven't found how they're going to win every night. At points you say, if they play like that, they're going to be unbeatable. But then they slip and end up split the series, or just having a bad 15-20 minutes of a game where they end up losing. And so they haven't found that consistency. I think they'll get there. I think this weekend will kind of tell them where they need to really bear down on. So I'm looking forward to the series. Again, we've got great college hockey series going all over the country, and as Brett alluded to, there's no easy win every single night.
Let's move on to the Minnesota Wild, and I kind of want to look back.
Yep.
Before we look at what's going on with the present and what's going to happen moving forward. The Wild announced within the last week that Mikko Koivu will have his number 9 retired and lifted up into the rafters. And he's always been an interesting guy, Pat, right? Yeah. I think everyone knows he was a pretty darn good hockey player, pretty complete hockey player that did lots of things and could play in all different situations. Yet, you and I have both always talked about, man, he would have been a really good number 2 center and was kind of forced into number 1 center role, and people kind of placed expectations on him that might not have been fair to him. And then you have the leadership aspect of it, where he was the captain of your team, but there was also some questions about what was going on in the locker room, and it seems like the locker room's going pretty good right now. You just kind of an interesting time here with Mikko Koivu with the Minnesota Wild.
It is, Brandon, and you can look at it from a lot of different points of view, and you brought those up. Ultimately, listen, he was what. I mean, he was with this team for what, 15 years, and I mean, sometimes unfairly put in a position where he had to be the number 1 center for a lot of years because they couldn't find a number 1 center. Yep. And automatically, when you're the number 1 center, the expectation is, well, you got to get 90 points or 100 points or 80 points or whatever it was. And he was never, ever, not that he was poor offensively, but he was never that guy.
Yep.
And so that's a little bit unfair to him, but he did do a lot of other really, really good things. And I think it's awfully hard to, at times, when you need everybody to be part of a team, to have that culture. One guy is not going to babysit 20 other guys, and you can do your best and you can try your hardest, but sometimes it really is out of your hands if you don't have the right mix of guys. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, I think what the Wild are doing is justified, and and good for Mikko.
Well, it's kind of interesting because the identity of Mikko Koivu has kind of been the identity of this franchise. I know he's been with this franchise for a good portion of its existence, but the Wild for the longest time was always going to work hard. We're going to be defensively responsible. Going to do the little things, going to do the right things, and really that's kind of been the franchise's identity, and that was his identity, and
Right.
it's really what they've kind of moved on from the last 2 years, and it wasn't just Mikko, but it kind of what's happened with Bill Garen is they've gotten away from that identity and said we need a more exciting brand of hockey. We need
Right.
more speed, more tempo, and I'll tell you as a Wild fan, I'm having more fun watching Wild hockey the last 2 years than I have in the existence of the franchise, just based off of the entertainment value of the games.
Yeah, since that run to the Western Conference Finals, it's been kind of, not the most exciting brand of hockey, and and this, and I don't think it's any disrespect to Mikko. It's just the game has changed. The new management has recognized that, hey, the way our style of the past does not work anymore here. They obtained more speed, more skill, a different style. And I think, like you just said, the entertainment factor every single night has been great. And that's why we watch the game, talk about the game, play the game, is for that entertainment value. And they've brought that, that's for sure.
We're very early on in Bill Guerin's tenure, and
Yep.
a lot can change. We know that. Like a year from now, I might be singing a different tune.
Right.
But as of right now, like it seems to me like Bill Garen and his staff know what they're doing in terms of the culture they're building, the type of play they know what kind of players they want to bring in. The ability to see like guys like Marcus Foligno taking his game to another level, Ryan Hartman this year taking it to another level, Joel Eriksson Ek, and I know these guys weren't all necessarily Bill Garen selections, but just
right.
to see their development, I just feel like they're identifying talent and putting them in the right positions to succeed while creating the proper winning culture around them.
Well, I think automatically, Brandon, and we've talked about this in the past, is that when someone is talking to you and they have the pedigree, and they can, they back it up with a Stanley Cup championship or multiple Stanley Cup championships, you listen. And no, was Eriksson Ek a draft pick of his? Was he someone that they brought up? Eriksson Ek, for example. No, but you can change how a person thinks and learn. And I think every one of those guys, every time Bill Guerin's around or Mike Modano's around, or people like that who have won the Stanley Cup, you're going to listen. You're going to start to understand what it takes. And I think every one of these guys is really, their ears are pretty big when those guys are around. And, and I think that's really helped. I think that's been a big factor in how the team is playing. And then when it comes to Billy and decisions that he's made, listen, he's got a plan. People were freaking out this summer when the two contracts were bought out, but it's not without, they just didn't do it. I think they have a plan in place. I think they know what they have in the organization coming up. I think they allotted for those dollars. He's been, you kind of look at it and you say, well, he's been kind of methodical in making moves, but in reality, he makes them. The team has had some changes. When he makes them, but he's also doesn't do it without the thinking process of it and how it's going to affect them this year, next year, and a couple of years down the road. Now we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. But right now, it looks awfully good.
One of my biggest concerns before this season was just kind of the lack of depth at defense, not really knowing what you're going to get out of the third pairing. And I thought, man, if one of your big four defensemen get hurt, this team's in trouble. Jared Spurgeon get hurt now. Spurgeon has been practicing the last couple of days, so that's great news. It sounds like he's nearing a return, but they've been able to steady the ship without Jared Spurgeon. From Kulikov and John Merrill playing pretty well, and heck, as bad as Jordy Ben looked in the preseason, he's been solid. I mean, to the point where Kalen Addison hasn't even gotten in the lineup since being called up. That blue line's playing pretty well, and we're not even talking about Jonas Brodin, who just is great every single night, and even Matt Dumba has been playing pretty well.
Yeah, and it's funny. On Fan Line, when we do Fan Line, I don't think we've brought up Brodin once, and why? Because you don't have to. It's amazing what he does night in and night out. I mean, he had a bomb the other night. At the end of the period to give him a 4-1 lead, but so we never talk about his offense because he really, I don't know. He doesn't get involved in the offense very much, right? But I tell you, he's a top 5 defenseman in the league for me. And we just don't talk about him enough because he doesn't make mistakes.
I talked about him on KFA and Wild Weekly last night with Kevin Fallness about how amazing I thought it was that the last game they played was the first penalty he's gotten this year. Right, so we're at game 22.
Yeah,
here's a guy who plays 20 plus minutes a night. He's playing against the other team's top players, and to never get a tripping or a hooking or an accidental high stick. I mean, that's astonishing to me. On top of playing really kind of a flawless game. It's not like he's letting guys beat him because he doesn't want to commit a penalty. He's stopping these players. He's adding offensively, like you mentioned. Like he's contributing. He's putting points on the board. It's been an unbelievable 22 games for him. And I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah, he's been great. And there was a lot of worry about the number 5, the number 6, the number 7 defense, and John Merrill gets one the other. Well, he got an assist on it. I thought it was his goal, but he's been fine back there. Kulikov is surprised me. I had not seen very much of him because obviously he played in the Eastern Conference with Jersey, and but you know what, and you're going to need that defensive depth as the season goes along. We saw Spurgeon go down, and hopefully they stay healthy, but it's been really good on the back end.
22 games in the Wild, they're in the top of the Central Division standing. So, Minnesota sports fans already are kind of standings watching, and you're looking at the teams behind them, and people have been talking about Winnipeg and Nashville and St. Louis. And I've said this whole time, Pat, I'm like, I know Colorado's down there a bit. That's still the team for me to beat in the Central Division, and they're getting Nathan McKinnon back. So I would expect Colorado to return to where we're used to seeing them probably sooner rather than later.
Like I talked about the Minnesota Gophers not quite finding where they want to get to, where their game is at, where they're in sync, and where they find that recipe to win, consistently. Colorado, same thing. They've had injuries. They've got a new goaltender. They've got, I agree with you 100%. Too much talent. Too much drive and determination to get to where they want to get to. They thought, last year was their year to really make that jump and get to the Stanley Cup Finals and win it. They didn't. I still think they have that hunger to do that. But yeah, listen, it hurts to have McKinnon out once he gets back and really, gets their lines where they should be. And because you got guys, playing on different lines. They haven't been set yet, but yet, watch out for them in the West.
I would like, our last topic here before we go. Who do you consider to be elite in the West? Okay, because I'm still including Colorado. Vegas obviously has had some injury stuff, and who knows when, and they'll get Jack Eichel. Obviously, like if they make the playoffs and they've got their full lineup, that's a team to be worried about. Colorado's a team to be worried about. Edmonton. With Connor McDavid in the regular season
and Draisaitl.
And Draisaitl, I mean, obviously they've played very well up until this point, but haven't really been able to do it over a course of 82 game seasons. Getting into the playoffs, I'm still not that worried about Calgary. I'm not going to say I've seen a lot of them, but the Wild are right up there in that mix.
They are. the one team that I look at that that still has it, in my opinion, because they've got great goaltending in Bennington. Ryan O'Reilly is one of the best captains and winners in the league. I think the St. Louis Blues, you got to keep an eye on. I really do. They've transformed their team a little bit on the back end. They used to have just big,
trees.
Trees back there.
And they still got Parayko.
Yeah, and they still have Parayko, but they have Perunovich, they have Krug, they have Justin Falk. All these guys are really, really good players, but they're a different type of player than they had back there when they won the Stanley Cup. And they were down 3-0 the other night to Tampa and came back and won in a shootout. So that's a team that David Perron up front, Tarasenko, they lost to Seattle, Jaden Schwartz. So they had to replace him, but they've got some young guys. They're a team that is right there with Minnesota. I think Minnesota, I think St. Louis, I think Vegas, once they get their guys back and get healthy, and obviously Colorado. I think those four teams will be squaring off against each other as once the playoffs get rolling.
Pat, great to talk to you as always. We'll watch you on Fox
9 Plus.
Yes, this weekend.
7:30 tomorrow night, 6:00 Saturday.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
Take care.
He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod. Make sure you subscribe to the KFAN YouTube channel so you can watch Beyond the Pod, or subscribe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcast for the audio portion of this podcast. Thank you so much for watching or listening this week. We'll talk to you next week on Beyond the Pod. Bye.